I think it was in the spring here last year when on a day I was a docent here and just right over by the desk there, when in through the door swept a person I'd never seen before, a young person, and she was interested in seeing what I and anyone else here at the museum knew about the Chico tunnels. Well, there was a story I can remember hearing about from my boyhood, that some claim there was an underground network of tunnels here. I never saw any sign of that. I never really met anyone who really claimed they'd seen this firsthand. As I got a little older, my dad, John Noble, who was in the process of developing his amateur Chico history status here in the community, and he would tell me, I don't think that ever was the case. But I know that story has floated on right down to today, and here was this new person asking about it. And so we talked a little bit about it. I think I might have given her some other people that she might go and contact. And so it comes to pass that here this morning, we've got Molly Myers here to present to us. She's from Palmdale, California. She's a junior over at CHICO'S State. She's a major in journalism with an emphasis on news. And as a matter of fact, she now is the Orion news editor for the on-campus newspaper, the Orion. Here we go. Here's Molly Myers.
Thank you, Dave, for that introduction. So yes, my name is Molly. I'm very excited to be here today and talk to you all about the legend of the Chico tunnels. So when I first came to Chico, I heard a lot about Chico. I heard that Bigwell Park was beautiful. I heard that Fifth Street Steakhouse had amazing food. I heard that your bike might get stolen. And I also heard that there were tunnels all underneath Chico. So last semester I took a class called Public Affairs Reporting. And public affairs is anything concerning the public. So it's anything from like 9/11 to like Parks and Rec. So it's very broad. So I was allowed to choose whatever I wanted to do a public affairs essay for this class, and I looked into the tunnels. So this is what we hear. So you hear that there's an intricate network of tunnels all under Chico. You often hear that they were built by the Chinese. The Chinese played a huge important role in Chico's history, basically built the town 150 years ago. You hear that the tunnels were used for illegal activities, and the ones that are still active are still used for illegal activities. This is what you hear. But you also hear that they do exist, but they're closed off. They've been closed off a few years ago. You can't access them, but they're there. They're underneath us. And you also hear that Annie Bidwell had the tunnels constructed. And there's a few different explanations for that. One is that the Chinese needed to walk to and from work, and that would be their protection. Was walking through the tunnels. Okay. And you also hear that, or it's because the white people didn't want to look at them. So the rumors get crazy and very wild. So now I have an Orion article from 1981 talking about the tunnels. And I just wanted to include this to show that the myth has been around for a very long time. Obviously, Dave shared that he was aware of it growing up. So it's something that's pervasive through Chico's history, through our folklore. And in this article, Chinese link to Chico's past, tunnels reveal town folklore. There's a block quote here. In addition to being an escape route, the tunnels reportedly contain many secret rooms and hiding places where the Orientals ran illegal bootlegging and smuggling operations. So obviously you can see how old this article is. We wouldn't use the term Orientals anymore. But I just wanted to include this to show how pervasive this myth has been. In this article, they basically echo all of the bullet points we just hit about why there's tunnels. And this article says that it's completely true. I don't know how, but there's no author on this article. I don't know how this got published, but there's no name, and of course, there are no sources within the article. But they published it in 1981. Okay, so first I need to explain what Reddit is for this next part to make sense. So, does anybody here know what Reddit is? Okay, 4 people. Amazing. Okay, so Reddit is a website online where it's like message forums. So it's kind of like social media, but it's more anonymous, just so that people can talk freely about whatever they want. So there's categories on Reddit called subreddits. So everything you could think of is going to have a subreddit. If you're into knitting, there's a subreddit for it. If you want any state is going to have a subreddit, California, politics, any type of hobby will have a subreddit for people to just talk about it and get ideas from each other. And every town pretty much has a subreddit. So Chico, the city of Chico has a subreddit. So people will go on there, talk about different issues concerning the city, or just talk about, places to eat. And some people talk about the folklore of Chico. So I've just taken a few screen grabs of different conversations people have had about Chico folklore. And this person named Murder Me Molly is not me, I swear. That's a non-famous person. We just happen to have the same name. But a year ago, they posted, "There are absolutely tunnels under downtown. Many of the historic buildings have doorways to the tunnels in their basements, although I think most of them are blocked off now for safety reasons. I don't know if the Chinese built them or what their original purpose might have been, but I'm sure the folks at the Chico History Museum can tell me. I wish they would open them up for tours. It would be fascinating." This person said, "Masonic tunnels are under Chico. They were used to transport Chinese immigrants from work to home so that no one had to see them / so that they wouldn't be harassed. The layout of the main streets were designed to make the shape of a Masonic spell." And then someone replied, "I used to climb around the basement at Bella's. You can go a little way under the city and see all the brickwork." And someone replied, "I want to get inside those tunnels." And then someone, the same person from earlier said, "You can access the tunnels from the bear as well." Someone replied, "What tunnels?" So the folklore section, I believe the title for this one was "Tell Me Something You Know About Chico That Nobody Else Knows." So it gets pretty wild in there. Someone even said, "The large underground vampire population." So where are the tunnels? Where would they be if they did exist? If they do exist, where are they? These are our suspects. So we've got the historic houses of Chico. So this yellow house here is the Alpha Gamma Delta sorority house. It was actually built by Guy Kennedy, Annie Bidwell's nephew. So we'll get into that one. All of Chico State is rumored to have tunnels. Madison Bear Garden, right out there, the restaurant, and all of downtown. So, starting with the college. So, California State University Chico was built, I believe, 1882. So it's a very old building, very historic. It was a normal school, and being such an old building, being such an old campus, there are a lot of myths associated with it. When I first toured Chico before deciding to go there, one of their selling points was that Chico was haunted, which did sell me a little bit. There are a ton of myths about Chico. There's a website, it's like a PR website for Chico called Chico State Today, and being PR, it's just to make Chico look interesting and fun and try to entice people to want to come here and talk about what the school has to offer. So this article, rumor has it, 10 Chico State Myths Explored by Rachel Ward, was written March 16th, 2016, and she talks about a few of the myths about Chico State. So one of them is that if you cut a rose from the rose garden or take a rose, it's like a $1,000 fine. This is not true. They talk about it. Another is that they used to do time capsules right in front of Kendall Hall, you know. And apparently they stopped doing them because one year they went a little crazy and they buried a car. So that one apparently is not true. There's a lot of myths. So one of the myths is that there are tunnels running beneath Chico State. So this article, rumor has it, there are underground tunnels all throughout Chico's downtown, and some even lead to Laxton Auditorium and various fraternities and sororities. In 2007, the Chico ER wrote an article investigating Chico's urban legends, including the belief in underground tunnels and interconnected basements. The author cited comments of the late John Noble, a Chico historian, that confirmed the truth behind these tunnels, and went further to stipulate that Holt Hall was actually Chico's best candidate for this kind of urban legend. What do we make of this mystery? While Guzman also agrees and says that these rumors are true, he admits that the basements have since been sealed off. Now, we don't know who Guzman is. This person is never attributed in the last part. So I don't know who that is and what that means. But going back to Rachel Ward citing John Noble, unfortunately this linked article here only goes to the ER's website, but I was able to track down what I think is the article they're referring to. And in that article, John Noble does not confirm that there are tunnels, though he does say that there were some basements in downtown in the businesses that do connect. But despite the lack of sources here, they deem this rumor completely true. On every myth that they addressed in this article, they have this cute little meter thing, and for this one, they said it was completely true. So I reached out to John Simmons, who is the interim director of facilities and operations at Chico State, and he informed me that from his words, not only are there no tunnels under Chico State, but this would be physically impossible because of the water table. So Big Chico Creek runs right through Chico State, and so I had to ask him what is a water table. So the water table is the area underground that is soaked with water from a nearby body of water. For us, it would be Chico Creek. So he said that any human-sized tunnel would just constantly be flooded, and especially too if we're talking about something that was built in the early, or just in the 1800s, that would not withhold time. So he said that was not possible. This picture here is they're building a new social science building on Chico State, and he said that they have vaults that lead to get to like heating and stuff, but they don't actually go anywhere. They're just kind of holes in the ground to access pipes and stuff. And this here, so this brown part here, you can see it's like covering some pipes. So all the heating is done through steam on Chico State's campus. And he said that they call these pipes tunnels in facilities. So because facility refers to these pipes as tunnels, he said some people will hear that and get excited and just get confused, thinking that they're talking about human-sized tunnels that people can walk in. But he did inform me that downtown, he was like, I've definitely heard downtown has tunnels. Over here. Next, the bear. So Madison Bear Garden, right over there. Audio again. Okay, so Madison Bear Garden, the building, was built in 1883, and the timing of this is very important. So Franklin Lusk occupied the building and worked there. He was a very prominent attorney in Chico and California as a whole. He was Bidwell's attorney, and he helped the Chinese in Chico at the time. So he Okay, so I want to talk about the Lem Branch murders because it just gives important context to what was going on in Chico at the time. So in 1877, following the torching of a bunch of white businesses that employed Chinese, 6 Chinese men were shot at Lem Branch and 5 were killed. So, and I believe only one man, a few men were involved in the crime, only one person served a few years in prison for this. So this is just to give context to the time. There was a lot of strife, racial tension between the Chinese community and the white community. The Chinese were more accepted when they first came to America to work on the railroad because they were needed for that. But once the railroad was completed, they still needed jobs, they still needed to work, and there became a lot of competition in the job market. The Chinese worked for far less than their white counterparts, and they lived in much worse conditions, but they worked for less, so there was a lot of hardship on both sides trying to find work, and it resulted in some very horrendous acts and a lot of intense racial tension. But Franklin Lusk was a friend of the Chinese, and he helped them. And because he had such a close working relationship with them, a lot of people had suspicions about tunnels under his building. And then I also included Franklin Lusk worked with the Chinese 6 companies, and that was the 6 largest companies that employed Chinese, that were run by Chinese in San Francisco. They worked together to protect the rights of the Chinese, and they also helped send back bones and burial stuff back to China. And they just worked to protect the rights of the Chinese. So considering all of that, and Franklin Lusk, his relationship with them, people questioned that he had tunnels under his building. Now, if you ask anyone at the fair, they will tell you, they will look you directly in your eyes and say that we have tunnels under our building. Now, I asked them, what do they look like? And they say, they don't really look like much. I've never been in them, is what they'll say. They say it's just kind of storage now, it's all blocked up. So that's what we know about the fair. I did reach out to them to try and see their tunnels, and they did not get back to me. I recommend asking them. They'd love to tell you. Next, Alpha Delta House, this sorority house. This house, very beautiful house. It's right on 5th Street, right next to 5th Street Steakhouse. And it was originally built in 1916. This is its construction. And it would be built by Guy Kennedy, or for Guy Kennedy, who was, go back to that, Annie Bidwell's nephew. Unrelated to the Kennedys. I had to look into that. I thought that would be cool, but he's not. And this house has a lot of rooms behind it. So, okay. So, they have this rumor too about the house that they have this wraparound driveway, and they believe, all the girls in the sorority, that Guy Kennedy was a bootlegger in the 20s and during the Prohibition, and they say that his wraparound driveway was used, people would pull up, and they would hand them moonshine through their cars or whatnot. Yeah, exactly. And Guy Kennedy did have a reputation as being a partier and liking to go crazy, and his aunt, Annie Bidwell, was a famously known for being a temperance movement advocate. So the fact that that could have been something super hidden is possible. It is not easy to verify. But all the girls will tell you that there's tunnels under their house. So I got lucky one day, I was talking to my professor about it. I was like trying to do open records requests and find the owner. And then the girl sitting in front of me was like, oh, I'm in that sorority. I can get you in the basement. I was like, thank you. So I met up with Kara Walker. So Kara Walker, this girl to the left, is the VP of, and she said that she would show me their basement that leads to tunnels. So this is through the garage. Reading down here, and then I have a video of what it looks like in the basement. So, Now, so that's how the rumor goes. There were tunnels, but they're all blocked off. So I asked Karen, I yelled at her. No, I said, where do you think the tunnels were? Where do you think it was blocked up? She's like, probably this wall. It points towards downtown. Pretty solid evidence, but and she said, I was like, okay, is there anything about this wall that makes you think that other than it pointing to downtown? And she said, where the wall and the ceiling meet, it looks like maybe something's been covered up. I think this is caulking, but yeah. So this is what the basement looks like, where they swear tunnels once were. Now, she said that their alumni will come back for alumni weekend and talk with the sorority girls about the tunnels. And they're like, oh yeah, there was definitely tunnels. But she said people from the same year will say that the tunnels were blocked off, and someone else will say that they were inside the tunnels. They'll often say that people had sex in the tunnels. But as you can see, it's all blocked off now, and somehow no one has ever taken a picture of what it looks like. So I reached out to Jeanette Passer, the Building Division Administrative Analysis for the City of Chico, who told me there has been a long time debate regarding the rumor about tunnels downtown, but there is no evidence in the Building Division records as to the existence of the tunnels. Now, anyone for the city will basically echo this. What are they hiding? So that's what we know about the Alpha Gamma Delta house. Next, downtown. So downtown, pretty much anyone will tell you that downtown has connecting basements. Every business, I've talked to a lot of people, they have echoed this. Connecting basements, they'll say that there's a bunch of bricks in the walls in the basements that look like they're blocking up doors. This could also be like weight loading brick to help with structuring. So Senator Theater kind of actually does have a tunnel. So I talked to Eric Norley, who is like a property manager. He does a lot downtown. And he said that the manager for Senator Theater told him, Eric, we have a tunnel, and I'm very scared of it. Can you please look at it? So Eric said that Senator Theater does have a tunnel that goes about 10 feet deep, and it just leads to a grate to the sidewalk. And it has a ramp for ventilation. So there's that. There's also something really interesting about downtown, and that's the basement access from the sidewalks. So if you've ever walked around downtown, you've stepped on these. So there are these big doors on the sidewalk, and a lot of people think that they're doors to tunnels. So this is right in front of Pita Pit. This is in front of Tomfoolery. This door right here. And Tres Hombres has one of these doors as well. This is on Salem Street, right towards the college. So on it says waterproof door, patent 1908. So Tres Hombres actually still uses these doors for delivery. I believe they are the only business in downtown that actually still uses their sidewalk access doors, and they lead to like a slide, like this fun looking slide, and they get deliveries of bottles and ice through here is what they told me. This is a quick little video if you've ever wanted to know what the basement of Tres Hombres looks like. And that's the door from underneath. So that's the door from the sidewalk, and this is what it looks like from underneath. And so these are our suspects again. So from the research I've done, from everything I've looked into, I was not able to verify what our imagination thinks of when we think of tunnels. So for now, they were innocent. That doesn't mean that more information will not surface. But one place that, at the very least, connecting basements are generally believed to have existed is in Old Chinatown. So Chico had, I just found out 3 Chinatowns apparently, but there are 2 main ones that we think about when we look into Chico's history. So Old Chinatown did have tunnels. This was pretty common knowledge within the community. This was confirmed by John Noble during the razing of Chinatown after it burned down, the old one. But there was much debate about the second Chinatown. So, as far as location, Old Chinatown was on both sides of Flume Street between 6th and 5th, and New Chinatown was on Cherry Street between 7th and 8th. So, Old Chinatown and New Chinatown were both said to have a series of connected basements beneath the buildings. Again, Old Chinatown generally agreed upon. But the possible purposes of these connecting basements could have been passageways, just general more living quarters, storage, of course, gambling, opium smoking, and avoiding persecution. And even though opium smoking and gambling were popular with both the Chinese and the white communities at the time, the Chinese were much more heavily persecuted. So they could have been hiding things for safety reasons. This here is just a photo from Old Chinatown after it had been razed in 1950. The photo was taken. So the Han family. The Han family is a very important family when understanding Chico's past with Chinese. So in 1890, Joe Ham arrives in Chico, and he had a few children, and he had 2 sons, Bill and George, who were raised in New Chinatown. And though raised in New Chinatown, both had talked about and had seen Old Chinatown having tunnels and connecting basements. But though being raised in New Chinatown, Bill Ham said that there were no tunnels, no connecting basements. Only like a crawl space, he said, and as a child he used to explore this, but he said as a child he couldn't even stand up in it. So to him it wasn't tunnels, but Larry V. Richardson, who Michelle Schober, who is a retired political science professor, who has written a lot about Chico's history, got a letter from Larry V. Richardson, who she described as a close observer during his many years in Chico. And he was there during the razing of the second Chinatown, and this is what he had to say about the second Chinatown. I was there when S. Leighton Owen razed Chinatown on Cherry Street. All these buildings were connected by a subfloor wood-walled hallway from 7th Street to 8th Street. At the north and south ends, there had been collapses, and rats had piled up dirt here and there, but there were small rooms. No doors were visible on the ground floor level. Here, panels ingeniously slid or tipped, sometimes with ropes, pulleys, and window weights or rocks. S. Leighton Owen had poo-pooed any idea of underfloor tunnels as he saw no doors. Then, with the roofs off, he put a bar to a panel, which slid away, and he lost his balance and plunged into the hallway below. He had a 3-inch cut on his bald head, several days' rest, and wore the visible mark for the rest of the summer. So, those are 2 very conflicting reports. Somebody who saw the razing and said that there were absolutely connecting basements, and someone who grew up there and somehow never saw them. So, why would the Chinese families hide the tunnels from their children? So, the Chinese considered themselves living at risk. During this time, they had illegal gambling, and there were often raids from the police at the time. So, Michelle Schober wrote a very excellent article on this called Chico's Mystery Tunnels, and she concluded her article by saying, "In this light, the need for hiding place makes sense. Considering its crucial purpose, that Bill Ham would not have known about it as a child also makes sense. However, the fact that no one ever mentioned it or showed it to him as a young man or an adult does not. The New Chinatown Tunnel or hidden hallway's existence and purpose remain a puzzle." So, what are the factual origins of this legend? So, what we can be confident about is Old Chinatown having connecting basements. There were cisterns in Chico when it was first constructed as fire would use them. So they were just like big holes in the ground full of water. They were like brick lined, and bucket brigades would use those to put out fires. And they've since been sealed up mainly, but every now and then someone would do construction and stumble upon one, and they'll think they found an old Chinese tunnel. So that's where people think of, but then there's also the missile silos out by Old Chico Airport. So during the Cold War, the government constructed the Titan missile silos, and these were just these huge missile silos, and they built some of them out in Chico, out by the old Chico Airport. And this is just a quick little video of what it looks like inside. Someone posted this on YouTube. They knew the owners at the time. I believe it's under new ownership, and you can no longer access them at all. But they got inside, and they're very fascinating to look at.
Take pictures of it.
And then these are just a few pictures of what it looks like in there. It's very dark. There's a few pictures here that will show that they really are kind of tunnels down there, at least tunnel looking like that. These, yeah, so there's a lot of like graffiti down there. Kids used to go in a lot and explore. I believe Dave might have been in there back in the day. But, so there's a really good article by someone named Tyler Ash who said that we really went into the history on it, and unfortunately you can no longer really get in them, but they are definitely out there and out by CHICO'S airport. So that's kind of a factual place where there are definitely tunnel looking things. This Orion article from 1992. A Chico State student actually fell while exploring them and broke like 2 ribs and had to be airlifted out. It was a very intense operation, but she survived. But just to show you that people loved exploring them. And she was actually very proud of it. This this media company reached out to her and they wanted to do an episode on it or some type of documentary, but they needed permission from the owner at the time, who did not like people exploring the silos. So that nothing ever came of that. So okay, so that's kind of where we're left with the factual origins, what we know for sure about the tunnel myth. What I have left here is just a quick video of me talking with Michelle Shover, who is so knowledgeable on Chico's past, and this is what she had to say. Just a quick clip of what we were talking about with the tunnels. This is her beautiful house, the Chapman Mansion.
In your opinion, why do you think we make these statements about our town?
Well, we want to think of our town's interest, and that can have a value to it, and it has a little complexity to state of mind.
Yeah.
It's a little, and it's interesting because it gives Chico a bit of exotic flavor, but you'll notice nothing memorial the Chinese to this day. Anyway, but I'm glad you're interested.
I'm very interested.
Yeah, it is. You're going to go beyond the mythology.
Yes. No, I'm very happy because behind the mythology is a lot of really cool history.
It is.
Yeah.
I think what really happened was really interesting.
So that is about it. That is what we know for sure about the Chico tunnels. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Did you happen to get under the Breslauer building?
No, I don't know what that is.
It's the one just north of the park.
Brushflower?
Breslauer.
Chico paper.
Where Chico paper is.
Okay, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I've been in it.
Yeah, we're talking about having people come in and tell the tunnel stories, and doing kind of like a special thing on that. So if you're interested, we'd love to hear about it afterwards. Yes.
I had always heard that Collier's Hardware is where the tunnel is.
I had heard that as well.
Overemployed, no.
Any other questions? Yes.
Have you heard anything about tunnels in Oroville?
Yeah, so, that was another thing. So, yeah, they're supposed to have spread all the way to Oroville. I believe there is a Chinese temple in Oroville that still exists, and some people are very confident about that place having tunnels. So I have heard that.
Of course, you heard of the little Marians, their story.
No, the Laverians.
Yeah, well,
In
there's tunnels underneath.
Oh.
Shasta.
Oh,
And one extends all the way into Cleveland Creek Canyon.
Fresno has tunnels as well, but they have like pictures of them. They're for sure there.
I had a student who was, well, it turns out she had a chemical imbalance, but she was married, and so she was a student of mine. So I said, okay, on Saturday, you know exactly where it is. And she said, yes. I said, well, let's go knock on the rock and have the door open and we'll go up the tunnel. And unfortunately, she didn't show up.
What do you think? Geology? That she could think?
Used to.
Oh, my gosh, very cool.
When all the kids were going down in the side.
Yes. Yes.
Can you speak more on the connectivity between basements downtown?
Yeah, so there's a lot. What we've heard is just that they were fire escapes, so that if one building was on fire, instead of going out through the front, you could go under the basement, go out another building. But there's no real documentation of this. Even some of the stuff that John Noble had said, people were having trouble confirming in regards to connecting basements. They would say Broadway between 1st and 2nd was an area where they existed. But there's nothing fully confirmed that I can say about that.
A lot of them have been, I guess when they did some road work, they put the soil in the basement, so you can go under. I mean, if you go under, you'll see arches where it's the top of the doorway.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
But it's filled up most of the way, and most
Yeah.
of
Under the water, the buildings in front of the Ronald there is a connection between the businesses and the ground. My uncle showed me.
Really?
And But you go under Phoenix building, it's just an open basement, dirt floor, it's only about
Oh, wow.
4.5 feet high. Because after it burned, my uncle finally down, because they were gonna put in a bar down there. And you're looking at like 4.5 feet, so now you're gonna have to dig down another 4+
Yeah.
feet. Because then you get the water table, 6 to 8 feet down below surface, so. I don't know if they ever got the plywood out, but it was nice 1-inch sheets of plywood.
Okay.
I mean, there are some connecting ones, it's interesting, they're just for good lessons.
Yeah, the lift gates, the fire gates. I'm looking at that one. Yes.
Colusa, California, reportedly has tunnels underneath, right there along the side of the river, which was then called Main Street, was still called Main Street. And Sacramento, California does an underground tour of their tunnels in Cul-de-sac. But it features the commercial aspect is highlighted in one of the bars. You see as it's freight from there, with a common storage underneath. And access on the sidewalks, so you go right down in there. It's a real good tour, I do recommend it.
Okay, so in Sacramento?
In Sacramento, in Sacramento.
Oh, wow.
And they did have a Chinese community also.
Yes.
If anyone wants to go on another tour, Seattle's got a good, Seattle has like Pike Street.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Seattle, Sacramento. Yes.
The Seattle and Sacramento tunnels are actually the original ground level, and they raised it up because of flooding. So they weren't originally made as tunnels, they were streets.
Yes.
Another thing I've heard is that I think Eric told me this, but Dave told me it wasn't true. But Eric said that Chico actually sank a little bit, and like if you go to like Gnarly Deli, they have like windows in their basement, and he said like that it sunk, but then Dave said that was just for light, for the or something. Yeah, so I've heard stuff about Chico sinking as well, but not verified at all. Chico sinking a little bit downtown, having sun, but not quite verified. Anything else? Yes.
Are you writing up your report?
Yeah, so actually,
Some way?
I published an article on this in the Orion. It came out early this semester, so if you just go on the Orion's website, it's called CHICO'S Tunnel Lore Rooted in History, and if you just look up tunnels on the Orion, or if you go on the features tab, it'll be on there, and pretty much all this is going to be in there. Yeah, cool. So that's where you can find it. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't do print anymore. Yeah, so it's all online.
Yeah. Well, we're all strong on online stuff.
It'll be easy. Awesome. All right, well,